We won't back down. God, that song pumps me up every single time. I'm glad we talked about it, Johnny. Like just sitting here talking about that song and how it kicks. And man, I looked through hundreds of songs through these lists just trying to find the perfect one. And then I saw this title, We Won't Back Down. And I'm like, oh, let's give this a listen. And then it kicked like that. And I was like, this is the one. This is the one. So welcome back to all the difference makers out there. We are 2 weeks into the new year, and let me ask you, has everything been going the way you planned? Has the visions lined up? Has everything hit the ground running smoothly, exactly how we pictured it? You know what? For all intents and purposes, everything has kind of hit the ground running and has been a good start to the year. But just in all full rawness, this episode is going to be kind of going through rawness, and we're as entrepreneurs. Life hits, and I talk about eating faces all the time. And, last week for me was a very, very difficult week. And so if you're an entrepreneur and you're a human and you go through human things, this will be a really good episode for you. And this is, again, it's very raw because these things are still going on. And kind of just, again, talking about things are happening. Things happen in our life that we cannot control, and we get really wrapped up on those things sometimes, and in can think that everything's bad and go into a real big spiral, or it's really hard to push through the challenges. And I was having those challenges last week, and I'm going to go through some things I did to push through, and again, just talking about grief, and especially we're going to talk about grief. When talking about grief, like, it's okay to just go through it and be with it. And I think that's where I found myself last week. So last week, and I'm going to try not to be super emotional like I typically am in these types of episodes, but it's been, again, really raw. It's been an emotional week. And so last Monday morning, I started my normal Monday routine of waking up my son and letting my dog out in the morning, and my dog actually passed away over the night, and so our dog, 12 years old, and she wasn't feeling very good the day before, and so it was tough. It's still tough. It's still waking up today and thinking about it being a week. It was like tough even getting out of bed. And, it's one of those things, and I'm moved past this. It's one of those things because I'm always like, we gotta make it through. And I sit and I'm like, man, I'm really like down about my dog and upset about my dog. And there are people losing people and family members and stuff like that. But, I've had a lot of really awesome people come in and be really supportive throughout this last week, and really remind me that dogs are our family. And so it really, it was like losing a family member and still processing that. And outside of that, just, and again, if you're listening, I'm not the only human that has lost a family pet. And so you can probably really relate to me, but I'm working from home most of the time. I have my office, and so when I have appointments and stuff like that, I go there. But I'm working from home most of the time. And so my day was so intertwined with my dog Molly, in letting her outside and her being by my side and her joining my meetings, and just about everything. I mean, to the point where I'm walking to the coffee shop to have a meeting on Wednesday, and just thinking about, on the way, all her favorite stops along the way, because one of her favorite things to do was to walk around downtown. So it's just like hitting those emotions, and then going through it. And for me, my business and what I do for a living is motivate and inspire people, coach and mentor people. So when I'm working with people, it's one of those things. I don't have a moment to be down and dealing with my emotions, because my job is to pick up other people. And so as I'm going through that, I was at a period on Tuesday morning where I just I didn't want to work. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to move. And then, I'm finding myself finding all the reasons, because that's the way our minds work. When we have one bad thing happen and we're really stuck in our emotions, it's like all of a sudden I watched as the day started unfolding, and just I saw everything is getting bad. And so I didn't want to leave the house. Like, I looked at constructions going on in my downtown, and what used to be a really easy commute to my office was now I got to figure out how to get around all this construction. And that's a pain in the butt. And I've got all these things going on. And it's just, I had to catch myself really, really quickly, because I'm going through this grief, and that's totally fine. Listen, I've talked about this on several episodes. It's okay to be vulnerable. I'm going to cry I said I'm going to apologize if I cry, but I have really no apologies. If I go through this and I cry, that's me. And just as I was going through sessions, I told people I was working with, hey, this happened, and you know what? I'm human, and as we go through this. But you know what? I was also able to use it as a motivation, because as we go through life and we can get really beat up on these challenges and things that are happening, and we can see all bad. And I was able to point that out to some people I was working with, that, hey, this was me this morning, Tuesday morning. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to meet with them. I didn't want to meet with people. I didn't want to, I had it in my head that everything was bad. But again, I was able to catch myself and interrupt that thought and give myself permission to go through with the grief, to realize that as the day goes on, I'm going to be sad. I'm going to have these feelings, but not everything is bad. And guess what? In the meantime, there's so many people that were there. I did post on social media, and so all these people that I know are connected with and friends, and thank you so much for everybody that was there, was responding, shooting texts, giving me calls. It's so awesome to have community and people that are supporting you through that. And again, I would encourage you, if you're going through grief, is to lean on other people. I wasn't afraid to tell people, again, this is what's going on. And because of that, people, again, everybody can relate. Everybody's lost an animal. I've heard so many stories, and it was really just supportive. And I'll be the first person to say, when somebody loses a close a family member or a loved one, or a pet, I don't always know what to say, and it's always the cliche of, I'm so sorry for your loss, and my thoughts and prayers are with you, and all the things. But just encourage you, just reach out. That's something that just I learned. It was just awesome just having people think about you as I was going through that. That was really comforting. So as you're thinking about that, what do I say? It's just sometimes people knowing that you're there. But again, so as I'm going through my week, on top of it, I had to do some traveling, and I had to go out of town and work with had 2 back-to-back long, grueling 8-hour meetings where we got really in depth. And at this meeting, I got a phone call from a friend and a guy I played basketball with for at least 11 years, that one of our other brothers in basketball passed away. And this guy was planning on coming and playing with us last Tuesday. Emailed, let me know that he was coming to play, and ended up having heart complications, and had some multiple surgeries, and ended up passing away, 61 years old. And shout out at Tim Hoffman, man. Just a tough loss for a guy that would show up every week with a smile on his face. Every week, I found myself saying so many times, like, I want to be like that guy when I'm 61 years old, because he would show up every week and just run his face off. He'd hustle, he'd rebound, he'd do all the things, and just be so happy to be there. And he'd just an awesome guy. And so it's just really rattling, and just really a reminder again of how fragile life is. Again, he was planning to come and play basketball with us Tuesday night, and then by Thursday he was gone. And again, I guess as I say that, I had just a thought of somebody that I was talking to this week that came across in a coffee shop. That was we were having a good conversation, and she had mentioned that things that I said in my posts were, that I'm funny. And first off, I was shocked because I don't feel like I post that many funny posts, which is shocking because humor was my first self-defense mechanism. But anyway, she was telling me about how I'm funny, or I was funny, and she was telling me about how she was guarded to really put her humor out there because she wasn't sure if people would like it, and I guess that's the thing is I don't think about it. I used to, and I was in her shoes where I would really think about, should I put that out there? And the fact of the matter is like, life is so short. Life is so fragile. We have no idea when it's going to end, and so don't put so much thought into, if I put this out there, are people going to judge me, or are they going to like me, or are they going to dislike me? If you put something out there and somebody doesn't like you, good. Like you can disqualify them, and you don't have to worry about hanging out with them or putting any time into it. And same thing if you're in business, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're putting your personality out there, and somebody's like, I don't like that person. I don't like their humor. I don't find them funny. I don't find them endearing, or they make me feel uncomfortable, whatever it is, then that's not your person, and you don't want to be around them anyways, good, bad, or indifferent. And you want to work with the people that are attracted to you for one reason or another. And there's so many of those people out there. So be you. Don't worry about what people think, because life is so fragile. And so, going through that, losing Molly, losing a friend, and then by the end of the week, before coming home from my trip, I found out that my mother-in-law got her cancer back. And so, wow, man, just a really, really, really tough week. But we all go through it, right? And I can't do anything but be there for the people. I can't, be supportive. In the meantime, I can't stop life, I guess. I'm gonna go through my grief. I'm going through my grief. This is like a personal therapy session. I'm me and the camera and Johnny in the in the booth here. Like I'm just talking it out loud, and you guys are all my captive audience here. So I apologize that I'm talking through it. But you know what? We have to talk through it. We have to go through it. I can't pretend like it's not happening. I can't store it away and not go through it, because it's always gonna be there. It's gonna find me. And so, you know what? I'm allowing myself to go through what I need to go through. But in the meantime, there's so many beautiful things that are still happening all around me. In the meantime, I'm getting every day pictures of my new niece, who is 6 weeks old, Natalie Marie. Shout out to you. Shout out to Jordan and Alyssa. Jordan, my brother, who actually is going to be the guest for our 100th episode. Super, super excited to have him on and really dive into our story, our family story, and just, it's going to be a phenomenal one. But there are phenomenal things happening. So I go to this meeting, and it always happens. It's hard to leave home. It's hard to leave home when all this stuff's happening. My whole family is going through this grief, and so it's hard to leave and to focus on doing good work. But then I go, and I'm surrounded around amazing people, and we got to really dive in deep for my client and produce work that is just it's. We looked and really planned out what their next 10 years is going to look like, what the next 10 years of our work, or what the next couple of years of our work and foundation is going to do to lead this company to massive success over the next 3 years, next 3 years, next 10 years. And to do that and to go through that, even while all this is happening. And then the cool thing is to have those people supportive, knowing what I'm going through. I didn't hide what I'm going through. They were there when I got the call that Tim had passed away, and they were there and they were supportive, So it's like surrounding yourself around those people, realizing that you've got to go and you got to go take care of business. You got to live your life. You got to go do the things. And so I went there with that open mind, and in knowing again that I'm around amazing people, it was very, very supportive and helped me get through a very, very, very difficult week. Again, I talked at the beginning, we can get really down. About what's going on in life. And I was talking to a friend a couple of weeks ago, Catherine Jewin, who actually is former guest, past guest on Coffee and Grit. And she has a client that is in South Africa, and I won't go into, I don't know if it's predicted, if she wants me to tell the whole story, but so I won't go into what they do. But what they do is an extremely difficult avenue of business just in general. Like if you're in the United States and everything is going right, this is still a very, very difficult business. There's a lot of challenges, a lot of moving parts, a lot of red tape, a lot of rules around. Just you're dealing with people at the end of the day. But then she was telling me on top of all the challenges they have, they're also in South Africa. And if you know anything about South Africa, their power grid is absolutely horrible. And so every day they deal with rolling outages and they have no idea when it's going to happen. So I worked in retail, and I remember retail people complaining if the technology went out or if we had a power outage, and just, the things that we take for granted that just work. The internet just works. The power just works. Doesn't just work in South Africa. And so at any given moment, at any given time of day, multiple times a day, their power just goes out. On top of it, they have 12 national languages. So when you're dealing with a massive company of 130, 100, 140, 150 employees, plus customers, and everybody speaks a different language, and not just one different language, but there's 12 different national languages, and you have no idea what languages people speak. Think about how hard it is to communicate. We have a hard time communicating in one language here. Like, think about trying to communicate to people across 12 different languages while going through a day with rolling power outages. And by the way, apartheid is still a very fresh wound. And so you have all of these mixed emotions and things that you're dealing with all throughout the day. So listen, no matter what's going on in our life, we could always have it. We could always have it worse. But when I was talking to Catherine, she was talking about this client, and no matter their resolve was just so strong, no matter what they had to go through, they just said, TIA, this is Africa, and we have to deal with it. And we know we have to deal with it. And so what's the sense in sitting and complaining about it? We just got to figure it out. We got to figure out how to exist and how to operate in spite of what is going on. It's not, again, letting, if you're going through grief or you're going through whatever, it's not taking that moment in letting the emotions go out. Last Monday, I was a wreck. It was really hard. I had one call in the morning, and it actually ended up being a really good call. And then I had this podcast scheduled. I literally canceled that. I had 2 podcasts that I did cancel last week because I just found it very difficult to get on and honestly put a smile on my face and go out there and talk. It was extremely difficult to process doing that. And so I did cancel and reschedule a couple of things to allow myself to process, because those emotions Monday were running really, really deep, and we had to go through it. But by the time Tuesday happened, those emotions are still there. Again, they're still there right now. When I come down my stairs, the first thing I want to do is let my dog out. When I get home, the first thing I think of her is her. There's like all these things, and just looking all over the house is thinking about her constantly, right? It's every time I pull in, seeing where we buried her at in our yard and thinking about her. And so those emotions, that grief is going to hit me at all points of the day. And I know I'm talking about my dog. And again, I have Tim that just passed away, a human, and his family is mourning him right now and going through something very similar, and it might take longer than what I'm going through. But thinking about kind of those recipes of understanding that it's okay to go through the grief, it's okay to be vulnerable and to let people know what's going on and going through the grief. And when you have the right people in your life, they're going to be there and be supportive. So the other day, one of my really good friends, Barb Ellison, and if you've listened to the show, you've heard me say this several times, is if you've lived through it, if you've been through it, then you've got to share it, because other people are going through it right now. And so why am I sharing this? And it's exactly that. It's because I know somebody else is going through this right now, whether it's a loss of a pet, a loss of a loved one, that you're going through this right now. And I actually just had a really interesting, just quick dialogue with Johnny while we were resetting a couple of things here in talking about kind of losing Molly, losing a pet, losing an animal, and how much that hurts. losing anyone, and how much that hurts. You think about even losing, even if it's not death, if you lost, if you break up with a loved one, or if you lose them and it feels so crushing, and it's like, do I do that again? Do I put myself in that space? In my immediate answer is yes, because everything that those 12 years with Molly were absolutely worth even that heartbreak at the end. And I think that's even, it's all of those memories, all of those things that make me so sad, knowing that those won't be around again, or knowing I won't have those particular memories again. That being said, as we've sat and reflected throughout the whole week, we saw her going downhill. We saw her not enjoying, not living life to her fullest. She had been battling. She'd had bladder stones for the last 4 years. And so it's something that they had told us, because she was a small dog, that if she had the surgery at the time 4 years ago, that she had about a 90% chance of not making it. And so we chose to go alternate route with just specialized food and allowing her to pass stones naturally. And so just that long story short, though, over the course of the last few months, we've seen that taken a toll on her. And so we've seen her slow down the things that she likes to do, and going out for walks and doing those things. Like, she didn't like doing that stuff as much anymore. She got tired much quicker. And then, like I said, Sunday, she was definitely not feeling good at all. And so it's knowing that she's not in any pain, but that's thinking about all those memories, all of those times, and adding on top of it, and and really diving into, I guess, my emotions is my wife and I have been together for 15 years, and my son is 14 years old, and our dog was 12. And so she was there through most of our relationship. She was there when my son was 2 years old to now where he's 14. And so it's kind of not just even a death of a loved one, a death of an animal, but just kind of like a death of a time period. As I sit and I think about all the sadness that I'm going through. However, all of that, I wouldn't trade those experiences. And so I know if I didn't do it again, I didn't put myself in position to love again, or to have another dog again, or, that what is life? Life is going to hurt. And it comes down to talking about eating faces and, the things that we can't control. We know when we sign up and get an animal that, there's a time window, unless you get a parrot. My mom's got a parrot that's going to outlive her. In fact, she's been out multiple conversations of who's going to take this parrot, and I can tell you it's not me, Mom. It's not me. But when you get an animal, there's a timeline. When you get married, when you get, when you have kids, you know that there's a time when all of us are going to die, and we don't know when. Going back to Tim planned to come with us and play basketball with us on Tuesday. This guy, I've played basketball now, I've been playing with this group of guys for 11 years. So in my adult, life, 11 years. And then now I play in multiple different groups of guys. I've seen over those 11 years, people come and go. I've seen people slow down. I've watched this guy over 11 years go from 50 to 61 and not slow down. Like, I consider myself, when I go out and play basketball, I run people's faces off. I run really, really hard. And I'm not the most skilled basketball player. So that was always my strategy, is I'm going to go out and I'm going to work hard. I'm going to hustle. I'm going to run your face off. And even if you beat me in the beginning, by the end, you're going to be so tired, you're not going to be able to keep up with me, and I'll get easy baskets, right? I'll get easy rebounds. I'll be able to, but this guy's 61 years old, almost 20 years older than me, keeping up with me. And he's one of I play with people in their 20s, guys in their 20s that are in good shape that don't keep up with me. And so watching this guy keep up with me, again, that's how fragile life is. Nobody would have expected that he wouldn't be here, And so when we talk about that, we know that life is going to set us up for that heartbreak. We're going to lose our parents. We're going to lose our loved ones. We're going to lose, we could lose kids. And that's the worst thing that we, as a parent, that to possibly think about. But I have friends that have been in that situation. And so, but would you never, if you were in that situation, would you not have a kid again? knowing that is going to happen. Man, I wouldn't trade that. I wouldn't trade that love, those experiences for anything. And so, as I'm going through this experience, I know for sure that we'll get another dog. It is one, not rushing through it again, allowing ourselves to go through kind of that grief. Yeah, I could think that's just the hold back at this point, but having that presence in our life. I was talking to a friend, Brian Truskowski, who's been on the podcast now a couple of times on Wednesday about this. And why is it so hard to lose an animal? And it's because of the unconditional love, and it's talking about like sometimes people take a loss of an animal tougher than a loss of a human, because no matter what, that animal is so happy to see you. And I'll tell you what, like no matter what, Molly was excited to see me. She was at, just into the new year at my mother-in-law's house, who spoils the crap out of her and lets her sit on her lap all day long and pets her. But when I came to pick her up, she was so happy to see me. And then she chased me out the door when I was carrying her stuff out, thinking that I was leaving her, so like that unconditional love, like we don't get from everybody. And so when you lose that, that is so extremely tough. And then again, the thought of now starting that over again and knowing you're going to have that loss, it's tough and it's heartbreaking. But I'd rather live and experience and love and lose than to not live life at all. And I think that's my consistent message is go out and love and live and be vulnerable and put yourself in those positions to live. We only get one life. When Mike, the owner of one of my clients, said it the other day, and kind of just joking around, the YOLO, like YOLO, you only live once. And so we get this finite time. We could live to be 100. We could live to be 61. We could live to be 43, like we don't know when that is going to be up. So go and live and experience, get everything you want, because Brandon Coleman said it on one of our episodes, like he died once. And so he was saved, got to live. And he's like, I'm going to ride every big ride in this park because I got a second admittance to the park. And so I'm going to ride every big ride. Go out and just experience life. Experience the loss, because you know what, it's tough, but I know I'm human. It hurts, but it's really cool. It hurts, but it's really cool to be in that community and to talk to people, because everybody has experienced loss to some degree. Most people have experienced losing a pet. Getting to my this little retreat that we did for our meeting, getting there and talking about the experience, everybody around the table had experiences of losing a family dog and how rocking that is, right? But every single person would do it again. So experience it, live it. Starting a business, right? And shifting back a little bit off of dogs and loss, but like starting a business can be tough and grueling, and there can be challenges and mistakes. It could feel like you don't ever want to do that. But wow, this has been the most challenging, most breathtaking, riveting experience I've had in my life. And again, not everything I can control. You go through experiences, tracking down clients and getting payroll and all that kind of stuff. There's stuff that you're not good at and you have to learn, you have to take your lumps. But again, it's experiencing it. Even now, I talk about this, even if you fail, right? Because either you're winning or you're learning. There's no such thing as failure unless you never try it. You just sit there and think it must be nice. You watch other people do it and think that they've got some magic potion or magic recipe to doing it. No, they just went out and did it. A client, Casey Campbell, was on the podcast a few weeks ago in Victory Lap, and this guy just went out and did it. Like, had every reason to not be successful in the world, being autistic and having people tell him that he couldn't do this, couldn't do that, and he went out and found a way to go out and build this thing that is just continues to blow up, and then to see his confidence expand and in just see his work grow. If I've seen so many other people try to start YouTube pages that can't get the momentum and the success and the results that he's getting. And just so just see him go out there and start off and not know anything of what he's doing and still learning and growing. All I know is it takes just going out and putting you're putting one foot in front of the other and doing it. And then over the course of the last couple of years, this guy has put out 2,800 videos up on YouTube. And so just by that massive action over and over and over again, he picks up traction. He's getting subscribers. He has so much watch time. But the most important thing is like his interviews have gotten so much better because he's just went out and did. I've had so many people reach out to me or comment to me over the last several months that they've listened to the podcast before Speakeasy into now, and they can see just a massive growth in my podcast, my interviewing style. And it's just repetition. It's doing it so many times. It's doing it over and over and over again. It's taking that action. It's doing those things. Before I was doing them more sporadically. This year we did 43 episodes in 2022. I think the year before it was probably like half that. So just go out and it's going to feel uncomfortable. You're not going to be that great at it at the beginning, but when you go out and you take that action, you're going to learn what you don't know. And again, you're either winning or you're learning. The only time you're failing is when you refuse to learn, or you hide back you don't live life because it could hurt, because it could be painful, because it could make you cry. You know what? Again, I've been crying all week. My eyes hurt, but I know I'm human. You know what? I know I'm full of love, and at the end of the day. So listen, if you're going through something, I would love to hear from you. If this has impacted you and helped you look at something a little bit differently, I'd love to hear from you. So until next time, everybody, go out there, eat faces. Listen, life is going to hand us crap. It's going to hand us death. It's going to hand us loss. It's going to hand us challenges. It's going to hand us all kinds of different things. Our whether we succeed or not is how we respond to it. What are we waiting to do? We have a chance to choose our attitude and choose what we're going to do next. Go out, eat faces, do the right thing. I look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks.